Hi, my name is Drew. I'm a sociologist.
I'm Kate. I'm a media production specialist.
And this is Everyone Should Read.
This is the podcast where we talk about books, plays, sonnets, short stories, essays, all of the ones that you've heard of and might have been assigned, might have read the first half, but might not have actually gotten all the way through.
We have been reading them for you, and we're going to pick them apart and talk about why they are preserved for posterity.
Yeah, some are more classic than others.
Absolutely. And we will see whether or not you should actually read them.
Or whether we think you should read them or not.
Touche.
If your English teacher assigns them, please do the assignment.
This is just my humble but divinely appointed opinion.
We are going through Gothic literature in season 1, and today we have finally hit Gothic poetry.
It is time. It is time. It is very exciting. Mine is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge today.
And mine is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
And so let's waste no time at all in getting into it. So
yours started first. Yours was published first.
1834.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about mine in particular because Samuel Taylor Coleridge is one of the pioneers of Romanticism, the Romantic movement, which is Gothicism is a subset of Romanticism. And this is really, really exciting. Just to remind everyone, people who might be listening to this as their first episode, Romanticism is a response to the Enlightenment, is a response to the scientific revolution. It is the idea that we should return to the beauty and simplicity of metaphor and allegory and the complex world of the unknown and commenting on the unknown.
And if that sounds really good to you, we have a full Gothic Romanticism episode that you can go back and listen to if you haven't already.
Which is really fun. It's very, I had a good time on that episode. So for this particular piece, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, this takes those themes and kind of reifies them for the first time, arguably, in a kind of short form format. The really fun thing, we were talking about this earlier, about poetry as opposed to prose, is that it doesn't have as much of a concern, especially in the case of Romanticism. It doesn't have as much of a concern with narrative style, and it's largely about communication, and it kind of leans into that metaphor and that allegory.
Well, and as Beyonce and Linda Martell will tell you,
Indeed.
Genre is a funny little thing. And if something is called prose poetry or a fragment or a short story or a poem or they're a brief, a short story, all of these different phrases are more marketing than they are descriptive of what you're going to get. And there are actually a lot of authors who won't label their work because if you're expecting a short story and it feels too much like a poem, or if you're expecting poetry and like rhyming couplets and it's a little more fragmented, people will give them bad reviews.
It's true.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. The idea of art fitting neatly into these boxes and categories is largely unrealistic, and it's not reflective of the artistic process.
Mm-hmm.
And Romanticism is, ironically enough, a category that speaks to this lack of categorization and is meant to resist that sort of. And I think of art as sort of a series of scaffoldings and maybe like ideas and themes that you want to come across, but that are not necessarily, a simple, it's not like there's a DSM of poetry, which is absurd. And the DSM itself is a different conversation, but same problems.
Yeah. And so like my poem today is about 4 pages long and yours is about 17.
Yeah. And but it's still, it reads very quickly, and it's not.
Yes.
They're both like quintessential Gothic literature. And I would almost say that mine is 17 pages because he had a lot of work to do pioneering the genre.
He had a lot to say.
Well, but it's a very simple kind of text, actually. It tells the story of, and again, this is sort of a resistance to the Enlightenment, and a lot of the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution was used as justification for colonialism and sort of reckless occupation by so many different European imperial powers of the time. And so he writes this story about this guy who is sailing with a large crew down into the Antarctic. And they're really kind of having a good time. The sun is overhead. It's really hot, but there is a mist that's kind of serendipitous. It's very nice, and it's keeping them cool. The wind is strong in the sails. The currents are good. They're all having a good time. And this albatross comes to hang out with them, and it eats their food, and it parties with them. Like, not parties. It's not like an anthropomorphized bird, but it's, they're having a good time. It's like man's best friend, except man's best friend is a bird. And the person recounting this story does not tell us why, and it doesn't seem like he really knows himself, but he kills the albatross. He shoots it with his crossbow. The albatross dies. And I think this sort of mindless destruction is what Coleridge is commenting on in this way. And I think the sort of nature of colonialism that he was commenting on, mindless destruction, mindless occupation, has evolved into a contemporary sort of mindless consumption. So in this way, I think like Gothic and Romantic literature persist. They are ever relevant. But he kills this albatross, and the universe punishes him, quite frankly. And I say the universe now, but this was not shy of any sort of biblical allegory. God is invoked a lot, but God as a force of nature as opposed to a sort of voyeuristic entity. And they are all collectively punished. The mist goes away. The wind dies from the sails. They are sitting there. They are baking under the sun. They are parched. They are thirsty. People start dropping dead. And he feels regret. It's literally, he's the only one who lives. He's the one who killed the albatross. He's left alive. Everyone else is dead. He's by himself. And as the regret settles in, and he's like, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I don't know why that happened. Slowly God and agents of him who occur within the sort of narrative of the poetry, agents of him come and they slowly sort of help him through. They're like, okay, well, the wind can come back, but are you thinking about what you did? The current will come back. Are you thinking about what you did? All of the sailors, as they die, they curse him. They say he says, they curse me with a dead man's eye. And they're animated by spirits, but they are dead. They are formally dead. And they man the ship on the way back to land. He eventually returns to land, and the ship sinks. The ship is destroyed. He is left in the water. He is then pulled into a boat by some people who spotted him from the coast and came to meet him. They came to meet his ship because they realize it's a ghost ship. By the time they get to him, it's a ghost ship. The sails are kind of tattered and the wood is warped, they say. And so there's really kind of no telling how long he was there, how long he was sort of in this prison of recompense. And that's like just the core of romantic literature. And it's really, really interesting because, again, Coleridge is one of the people who is like the progenitors of the genre, the not genre. And he does a lot of the heavy lifting. He's sort of like, reckless expansion and trying to categorize everything and trying to dominate that which you don't understand. Like, look how much you don't actually understand. And, how dare you challenge the divinity of God with these ideals? Because at the time, the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution were still very much in service of sort of religious zeitgeist and cultural cohesion. We've moved a little bit more towards a secular identity over time, and that was sort of characterized by the 19th century, but we don't have to get into that. But yeah, that's the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's very good. The narrator isn't necessarily unreliable, but it's very clear at the beginning because it starts with him telling his story to someone who he just spots at a wedding. There's like a guy who like stops out for his smoke. It's not actually a smoke, but he's outside. He just kind of runs up to him and says, something crazy happened to me. And the guy's like, oh my God. But it's such a compelling story that he's enraptured. So he's not an unreliable narrator, but it's very clear that this is like a crazy man who's like talking to you about his time at sea. Good poetry. I liked it. It's good.
And it's still inspiring work.
It is. I mean, I feel like that story can be retold and retold and retold. I almost wonder, not quite Castaway, Tom Hanks, but like sort of, same themes.
Yeah. And we have Taylor Swift's The Albatross.
We do, where she doesn't allude to the story of sort of recompense for reckless destruction, but she sort of tells the story. She's like, I am the gateway to a journey of self-discovery. I am the albatross in this case. If you are willing to sort of work with me, if you are willing to go with me on this journey, if you kill me, if you listen to the sort of mindless, unintentional kind of consumption, if you kill me, then it's going to be really bad for everybody involved, you and me both. And this isn't going to work. But, if you work in concert with the element of nature and divinity, I mean, woman as feminine, as the divine feminine, akin to nature, Simone de Beauvoir, et cetera, et cetera. But that's sort of that through line she communicates in so few words relatively.
Yes.
So.
And it's on her album, The Tortured Poets Department, which leads pretty well right into my poem.
Yes, tell us.
It is a tortured poet in every sense of the word.
Your poem.
Poem. We've been having fun with puns all day. And another place that is having fun with Edgar Allan Poe puns is Netflix's Wednesday. She attends Nevermore Academy,
Right.
which Nevermore comes from the Raven. There are ravens throughout, especially season 2. When we're recording this, the end of season 2 hasn't aired yet, so I don't know how it ends, but I know that ravens are a big part.
Okay.
I haven't seen all of it, but I've seen enough to know.
The ravens, they're coming back.
Yes. And we have within the poem The Raven a tortured poet written by a tortured poet. And I want to break both of those down because the internal story and the external of what was going on in his life were bad. All of it is bad.
Yeah.
We have an unnamed narrator who is at home. He is mourning the loss of his love named Lenore. And he, over the course of the 4 pages, deals with grief and loss and the supernatural and evokes Greek and Roman and biblical mythos in a way that you're sort of like, does he know that those are all different? Maybe, maybe not. Poe's education was like famously sort of scattered because of a lack of funding. He attended a lot of freshman years of college at different universities and establishments. And so I'm not sure if he knows that talking about Plutonian shores and also talking about, Greek gods at the same time, like line after line, Greek and Roman gods are going back and forth. And we have references to Gilead and different biblical stories. It's really interesting. It talks a lot about how it's very dark academia and the sort of idea that someone should know all of these references. The poem is not very long, but it is so rife with references to other classic works and older works. This one was published in 1847.
Do you feel like this sort of blending together of different sort of allegorical narratives historically lend it a greater romantic character, or do you think it's just a guy throwing things to the wall and seeing what sticks?
Well, and so that's the thing. We don't know. And I kind of love that because it allows the reader to occasionally be like, oh, I get all of these references. I feel incredibly smart. I know what all of these different characters and these stories mean. And so when you use referential anything as a storytelling device, it allows the audience to sort of like jump ahead. It's like you can skip to understanding exactly what he's talking about because you know all of the other parts of that story. He doesn't need to break down and go on for pages about someone has died and they're wafting on the shores down in Hades. They are away from me and I will never get them back, sort of thing. But then the poem does sort of descend into madness. So like it could go either way. And I think that is up to interpretation, which I really love about poetry and Gothic literature in general, is that so much is up to the reader's interpretation. And we have talked a lot about how, depending on the adaptation that you see or watch or hear or listen to, you're going to find different variations, different adaptations. Someone is going to be like, I like it this way better. I think they're in love. I don't think they're in love. I think she's lost from him in a different way or a different concept. And depending on how open-ended a story ends, you have all sorts of options. And so with The Raven, this unnamed narrator is at home. He is mourning the loss of his great love. And he starts hearing this knock on the door and he's like, go away, leave me alone, go away. And then it starts knocking on the window and he's like, please just like let me mourn in peace. Let me just lay here. Let me just be in my misery, in my sadness, in my grief. And he finally goes and it's a raven. And it's a raven who can talk. So we have all sorts of elements of...
A lot of ravens can talk, like kind of like parrots. Ravens can talk.
Yes.
Which is really strange and creepy.
I was watching videos the other day in anticipation of... We do a lot of research for this podcast, let me tell you, because I was watching videos of ravens mimicking their like... I don't want to say owners, but like the humans they have adopted or allowed to adopt them.
Cutie, yeah.
Yeah, true. Super cute. And the human will make a noise and the raven will like mimic almost perfectly the noise.
They can talk, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this raven likes to say the word nevermore.
Real.
And the poetry is in an ABC BBB stanza style where all of the B's rhyme with Lenore. So you have door, you have nevermore, you have or. Listen, he's telling a story.
It's certainly communicating.
There's a lot of other rhyming within like the A and C lines, which is also fascinating to me. And I love the way that he plays with it, but the B's are hard OR sounds, which is really lovely. And gives a really beautiful cadence to how you feel like you should be reading it. And I love when a story instructs the reader like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think Yeah,
implicit to
there's
the.
sort of like guide rails on
Hmm.
how the story should go.
Hmm.
No matter who's reading it, no matter what time in history, they're going to be using the same rhythm, the same cadence. And I
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful. Um, but this raven starts sort of like mocking this person. And the poem is, depending on your interpretation, the narrator's descent into madness
Hmm.
through grief,
I see.
which is really beautiful and really lovely. And it comes out of a time in the author's life that was not. The poet, Edgar Allan Poe, gross person. Not a huge
Unfortunately.
fan. In fact, most people in the day and time in which he was popular, and this poem was popular when it was written,
Hmm.
didn't like him for several reasons. One of which is that he married a child.
Great reason not to like someone, I concur.
Yeah. He was 24. She was his cousin, and they got engaged when she was 12. They got married when she was 13.
Mm.
She only lived to 24,
Hmm.
and she died of tuberculosis. She was very sick for a very long time. And for those of you who don't have a strong understanding of what tuberculosis does to the body, it makes you incredibly thin and incredibly pale. It's where you get the sort of like Tim Burton-esque characters, the really waifish, thin, the hollow eyes, the sunken cheek situation. You look like you have high, strong cheekbones because there's no fat left on your face situation, the
Mhm.
big eyes. And everyone who met Edgar Allan Poe's wife was like, oh, she's this ethereal beauty. She's absolutely stunning. She is otherworldly. She has this dark hair and this pale skin and these almost violet eyes.
She's
like
sick and dying.
she's sick and dying. She dies 2 years after The Raven is published.
Mhm.
So he is actively dealing with his wife dying. And he wrote untold numbers of letters and poems and poetry for her, to her, about her.
Mhm.
Seemed to be very in love with her. The fact that he was 12 years older than her
Yeah.
and she was a child is
Mhm.
something that I do still hold against him.
As do I.
I
yeah.
think that there are arguments, well, I don't think, I know that there are arguments for and against separating the art and the artist.
Mhm.
And while you can enjoy The Raven without knowing anything about Edgar Allan Poe,
Yeah.
and in fact, most people do,
Exactly.
it is one of the most famous poems of all time. A lot of his work is incredibly famous, brilliant. Even people who hated him admitted that his work was really good.
Mm.
And I respect them for that
Mhm.
because you can stay hating and be like, he is talented though.
Credit where credit is due.
Yes, 100%. Icky guy.
Yeah.
He was a raging alcoholic, lost numerous jobs over and over again because even though he was this brilliant, talented writer that everyone wanted to employ,
Mhm.
he was deeply unemployable.
I mean, it sounds like he just sucked.
Yeah, he wasn't a great guy.
Professional, bad at being a person.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And there's a story about how close to the death of his wife, he was having an affair with what people refer to as an older woman. And I think it's very important to note that she was age appropriate for him.
Mm.
She was only 2 years younger than him. She was just 10 years older than his wife. And so older is in reference to how much younger his wife is and not the fact that the woman he was having an affair with, while inappropriate because he was married and so was she, was 34 and he was 36.
An affair with an older woman who is age appropriate and younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So a man wrote that.
Yeah.
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 Because no one thinks, oh, a man who's 2 years older than me, that I'm the older woman in this situation.
Absolutely not. No. No. Yeah. Absolutely.
But to get back to his work,
Yeah.
his poetry, he's spending so much of his life isolated because his wife is so sick
Mhm.
and she is actively suffering all the time. So a lot of his work comes from this deep melancholy of living with someone who's actively dying,
Mhm.
who is the most beautiful person everyone who saw her had met. Fantastic. Good for him. Good for her, really.
Well,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
she was married for 12 years and she died at the age of 24. So her life was not good.
I think sort of part of the reason that makes this piece so good,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of the other pieces attached to the same through line, is the chronological relationship with grief. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, how grief can be cyclical and you think you're making it out and then you find yourself lapsing and it's just sort of, you get further and further away from the thing that is causing the grief in time, and you develop a different relationship with it, but it never really goes away. There's some other books like that that I really, really love. I love a good grief book. Um,
Well, and with tuberculosis, there are time periods where people seem to get better.
mhm.
And I think there are a few things more heartbreaking than having to grapple with the concept that someone you love is dying and then thinking that they're getting better and then them getting worse.
And
Like that
yeah.
that hope, that like bursting of the balloon where the emotions just keep coming back.
If you do not want to dig into the works of Poe, if one does not want to dig into the works of Poe, but want to explore something that kind of reflects this, I don't know where we're gonna get it into a season. I don't know what season, but A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness is my favorite story about dealing with grief and like the ebb and flow and will this person be okay or will they not, and what that does to you and how you deal with that even when it's like catching you off guard. Oh my gosh, such a good one.
We like currently have it slated for possibly season 3, but that's so far away from now.
So
And like honestly, the book I read for next episode changed 3 times. So like anything could happen.
anything good, but if you can read it, oh my gosh, I recommend it so hard. It's such a good book. It's one of my favorites. It makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
And it's a short read. I read
Yeah.
it on airplanes and I cry by the time we're landing.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
I should stop.
if you have a relationship where with authors and creators where you don't want to separate the art from the artist, I recognize that. I understand that. I
Mhm.
feel that. There are a lot of musicians that I don't listen to anymore because they still have access and opportunity to benefit from my patronage, and I don't appreciate that. But I think that when someone has been dead for a long time, I feel a little
Yeah.
better about the fact that they're not continuing to perpetrate harm on those around them.
Mhm.
And his work is, I mean, even people who hated him really loved it.
Yeah.
So there is something to unpack there. He also has The Telltale Heart and Annabelle Lee.
Mhm.
You can usually buy his work in like a collection anthology,
Mhm.
and it's really, unfortunately, really beautiful.
So, with that in mind, should everyone read The Raven?
Maybe,
Maybe.
like I said, if you have issues with separating art from artist,
Mhm.
and I respect that, if that is the case, then no,
Okay.
terrible person, walk away, leave it alone.
Yeah.
If you want to read some of the most heartbreaking, haunting, grief-stricken work you've ever encountered,
Mhm.
yeah, dig right in.
Okay.
It's really beautiful.
Well, alrighty.
How do you feel? Do you think everyone should read Rime of the Ancient Mariner?
With Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which I enjoyed, here's the thing. I think everyone should read it because it's short. It's not like like read it on your commute. It's really not hard. It is poetry. You're not going to understand all of the language, but that's fine because it's the beginning of Romanticism. If you want to understand the different eras of literature and literary movements, you should absolutely, you have to read it. Like that's what makes the most sense. But for your life, if you want to be just like a well-versed, sort of savant of arts and culture and all those things, I don't think you have to read Rime of the Ancient Mariner. You can read some other Romanticism. I think the core tenets of Romanticism are there. I think you can read some good poetry. I think you can read contemporary Romanticism if you want to understand Romanticism. But if you are going to do a deep dive and have a relationship with the chronology of Romanticism, Rime of the Ancient Mariner is your one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you take nothing else away, Quoth the Raven Nevermore and
I
Shooting the
concur.
Albatross Down are the 2 big cultural references that you are going to get from both of these stories.
Respect the birds.
Respect
That's
the
what it's giving.
birds.
My name is Drew. I'm a sociologist.
I'm Kate. I'm a media production specialist.
And this was Everyone Should Read.
Thank you so much for listening. And while we still have you here, please tell your librarian we love them.